We're back. Another episode of the Golden V podcast streaming live to our YouTube channel. It is Thursday, February the 13th, 2025, right around 12 p.m. And my friend Steve Ewen from Postmedia in the province has joined me for the Golden V podcast monthly update on the Vancouver Giants. So let's just kick it right off by welcoming in Steve. Steve, how are you?
Tremendous. How are you?
Great. So let's just get into this. So a couple things coming up this weekend, back-to-back or home-at-home series against the Victoria Cougars, looking at some records and the WHL standings. Obviously, the Cougars first in the BC division, 31 wins.
I lost you. Come back, Ben.
Alrighty then. Looks like we had a technical glitch to kick off that episode of the podcast. Hopefully we can get Steve back streaming through Restream and losing Steve in the process. But yeah, let's keep going. I'm going to try and get Steve back in here because we've had some technical glitches with our Chrome browser. So let's just bring Steve back in. I'm just running this live while we wait for Steve, trying to get this thing reorganized. Sometimes my Chrome browser can be a little finicky, but we're just kicking off. That was a pain in the arse. Sorry about that.
Words.
That was my browser that quit on me.
Damn browser.
Yeah, I think, I was going to say to you, if the next time I'll get your email, the other way we could do it is use my Google Meet subscription and then just pre-tape. I mean, live stream is great, but we can pre-tape too. But let's just do this. All right, so we're back. So, yeah, home series against this weekend against the Cougars. Looking at the Cougars.
Victoria Royals.
Royals, thank you. And then, obviously, Monday's Family Day game is what I meant, 2 p.m. against the Prince George Cougars. Looking at the standings, obviously the Royals are in first, the Cougars are in second, Vancouver's in third in the BC division with 25 wins. Coming off a pretty big victory last week, Steve, 6-2 against the Everett Silvertips. What's the vibe around the team right now?
I think they're up and down. I think they, when they're good, they're very good, and when they're not good, they're in trouble. And I think as a group, they're trying to figure out what's the difference between those two things, because they prep the same, they get ready the same, they do everything the same, and just they were kind of dreary on Friday night against Portland, and they were tremendous on Saturday against a very good Everett team. So I think that's the challenge for them is trying to figure out when they're good, what are the components, what are they looking for?
Yeah, it's strange because I was looking back at our show from last month and I transcribed the video with a program called Otter AI, and this is the same conversation we had last month, and it seems to reach back to the whole thing about consistency, right? I mean, I was looking at some recent pieces of news, and one was this thing about Manny Vieros and his cancer, and then his depression, and I saw that on the CHL's Instagram account. So I was going to ask you about that, but it sounded like from reading last Friday's recap that they are almost world beaters against the Silvertips, and the Silvertips are, if not one of the top teams, if not the top team in the WHL right now.
They are the toughest team to play. They come at you in waves. They refuse to get outworked. They're a very good hockey team, and to handle them as easily as they did, and to be as complete as it was, and especially coming off a night where I think they had 3 shots at the midway point in the second period against Portland. It was 2 completely different Vancouver teams, and within a 24-hour span. So Yeah, it's been an odd year. I don't know if it's leadership. I don't know if it's the older guys. I don't know where to put a finger on it. Obviously, if someone did, they'd be figuring it out. So they continue to be a work in progress.
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? Because I was looking at this thing about Madison Leslie too, and so now he's taken over franchise lead for points by defenseman. Maybe you could share a little bit about that.
You're taking over the lead for goals.
Yeah, goals. Thank you. And so then that was one thing I wanted to talk to you about. And then I was just looking back at last month's notes, looking at the trade with the Russian guy coming in, and then also what the status of Vancouver's goaltending was, because I noticed a few different names on the roster now for goaltending. Obviously, Hood is the guy. What's happened with Smith since that trade after obviously the other goaltender went the other way?
I think with the goaltending, I think Kirk Hood is kind of taking the lead. He's still a young guy, still trying to figure out what a rhyme and a rhythm. I think he's going to get every opportunity to carry the load. I feel they're just so kind of in and out. They're not, their efforts and their performances are very sporadic, and that's something they need to figure out, and they've got 17 more regular season games to do it.
Right. Yeah, because and looking at some of the stats from this game, the penalty was 6-6 in the Saturday game. You win 3 for 5 on the power play. I was going to ask you a little bit about Maximilian's progress. Obviously, after that trade last month, we talked right when the trade deadline happened. So what's happening with him? And then obviously I had questions about Smith too, right? Because how much has he played as a result of?
It feels like they're going to run with Hood. It feels like Hood's got the ball right now, and he's going to get every chance to hold on to it. So that's the goalie question in my mind. With Maxim, he's big, strong, power forward type. Looks like the kind of guy that's really gonna be important playoff time. I think he gives them some more options on his second line. He gives them just is very good on the forecheck. Kind of a guy that brings all the rest of the guys into the fight.
Interesting, because obviously one of the things we talked about in a couple of previous episodes in November and December was the play of Cameron Schmidt and his quest to break the Vancouver Giants goal record too. Mm-hmm. So how's Cameron been doing? Because I was looking, obviously I have my elite prospects account. I see how many games Cameron's played. How's his play been? Obviously, in the last month since we talked, obviously he was so prolific to start the season, like we discussed, but had the injury, right?
He scores in bunches. He's always going to be a guy that scores in bunches. He's a guy that gets a lot of attention. He's a guy who needs the power play working. I think he's very good on the power play. And that group, if it's working well, it's going to help with his numbers. I think he's been fine. I think to expect a 17-year-old guy to get 60 goals, I think was always going to be a huge ask. And if he can get past 40, I think that's a great accomplishment. Evander Kane got 48 in his draft year and was the 4th overall pick. So that there's a comparable for it.
Yeah, because just looking at top scorers in the team, I'll share it in the chat. I mean, it's Cameron Schmidt with 59 points, Madison Leslie with 59 points for a defenseman. Obviously, Ty Haliburton's creeped up there a little bit too, 47 points. Looking at who's tops in goals on the team, it's Schmidt, and then looks like we've got Tyler Thorpe, Ty Haliburton, Adam Tillback. And that's pretty impressive for the Giants, despite their record to have 4 guys with 20 or more goals, right?
The record is deceiving to me because, again, I think there are nights where they look like they're going to go a couple of playoff rounds, and there are nights where it looks like they're going to lose 4 straight. And I think so much of it really comes down to their group. It's not going to be about who they're playing or where they're playing or where it's going. It's going to be, can they play as a singular unit? Can they play connected? When they do that, they're a load. And when they don't do that, when the guys go into business for themselves, be it because they're trying too hard or because they're not buying into the system, I don't know which it is.
Yeah, I know we talked about it on last month's thing, and when you said that, it reminded me of this. So it's consistency, but like you also said, it sounded like a lot of guys were just standing around waiting for people like Cameron Schmidt to do something, rather than taking the ball themselves and saying, "Okay, like Cameron's, probably the best player on the team, but when you got guys like Halliburton and you got Thorpe, and look at some of these guys that are NHL draft picks with Thorpe, Connor Levis, Jaden Lipinski, and even obviously Adam Tillbeck's sort of performance this season. There's guys on this team that can do it besides Cameron Schmidt. I mean, when you see the stats, and you're right, maybe the stats are deceiving, it would lead you to believe that this team has enough depth up front that when Cameron Schmidt doesn't score, they can still do something in the game.
This is a team that's got all sorts of offensive talent, but besides Cameron Schmidt, I think it's gotten to the point where he's getting more and more attention, and it's giving other guys an opportunity to produce, and a lot of nights those guys are taking it. So this is a team that I don't think will have any problem scoring at any point. Right. This is a team that needs to get the puck out of its zone. This is a team that needs to check if it's going to go deeper into the opponent.
Yeah. And so then, obviously, upcoming this weekend, this series against Victoria, cruising through their website, Johnny Hicks is named goaltender of the week in the WHL. Cole Resney's the Tempo WHL player of the week. Vancouver's been tougher against Victoria, right?
This is a very good Victoria. I think the Victorias, the Spokanes, the Everetts, the Prince Georges, those are all very good teams. But like we talked about, they were full value for a win against an Everett team on Saturday night. So it shows you that they have that potential when they play as a group.
Right. And so this other thing that we're going to talk about, and I got a few more stats here, the thing about Manny Vieros, and this thing that popped up on my Instagram yesterday, I took a screenshot of it because it's an interesting topic. I didn't realize these challenges for Manny about his cancer diagnosis. 2 different forms of cancer, followed by depression. To listen to him speak and to watch him on the bench and to just hear him on the post games with Justin Morissette and with Joel Wilms. I mean, obviously you would never know that, but what is it about Manny for this team? Because when you say the consistency thing and then you see what he's been through and sort of his coaching style, what are they missing? Because I don't know.
I think he's done. He came late last year. They signed him right before training camp, so that put them kind of behind the 8 ball. I think they play with more purpose. They play with more intent this year. They check much better than they did last year. I don't put any of it on the coach. I think it's the group. I think it's they need. I think they're getting everything they need to have success. They need to be more consistent. I think we keep going over that.
Yeah. So heading in then against Victoria, what are we looking for? A split in this series, or are we looking
I think you'd be happy with a split, but I think you're getting into every win you get puts you in a better spot, and it's about them trending the right way. So I think they just need to start playing better. They need to be competitive every night. More than wins and losses. They're getting in the playoffs. They're going to play a good team the first shot. Yeah, I don't think they can get to the point where they can get to a 4 spot where they've got home ice. So they just need to be playing better.
Yeah, because they were 7th last month when we checked in, right? And we talked about that last month, awarding possible scenarios, right? And it doesn't look like that's going to happen. And obviously they've got the 2 this week and the home and home. They got the Prince George game. They got to play the Rockets next Saturday, and then Sunday, March 2nd, they play the Wenatchee Wild. That's their home games. So what else is happening in between? Obviously, this weekend's games, the Monday against Prince George. What else do they have on that schedule between now and say March the 2nd?
I just, as a group, I just think they need to kind of get in unison. So I think that's the big thing for them. As far as I don't think it's about who's coming. I think it's about how they're playing. I think you can, they're playing a good team in the first round. Goes without saying. Whether it's Spokane, whether it's Victoria,
right?
I think it's all about getting their group together.
Right. Okay. All right. Any last minute?
I'm all good.
Bits information before we wrap it up.
I'm all good.
Okay. Thanks for your time, Steve. I really appreciate it. We'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you.
Take care.
Thanks,
Yeah. Bye-bye.